Hey everybody, and welcome to a brand new installment of Nintendo News Report for Thursday, February 22nd, February 12th, 2015. During the show, we discuss recent Nintendo news as well as this week's new releases and more. I'm your host, Alexander Coffey, and joining me for a very special two-man show, Nintendo News Report typical correspondent, Scott Thompson, returning after a break last week. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing good. Actually, it's like a break for 2 weeks. Technically, I missed the 2 weeks in a row. But I'm,
That's
I'm
true.
I'm back, and I'm glad to hear that right off the bat we got the date wrong. We are just like picking up right where we left off. So I'm excited.
It's okay. As I'm saying this right now, we are recording for an audience of 0 people.
Nice.
So it's
So no one knows.
hello, YouTube people who see this after the fact. This is off to a fantastic start.
Yep.
This week's top story is unreleased Nintendo games. Info came out about three new, not new because they never came out, but unreleased Nintendo games that Unseen64 provided a bunch of info for. The first one is Harry Potter. Nintendo tried to secure the exclusive rights to J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter franchise, and we should note that this wasn't in like 2002 when like Harry Potter was already established as a movie franchise and everyone already loved it and Harry Potter was becoming a big thing. This was before Harry Potter became a movie. This was, I believe, in 1998. They tried to secure the total rights for Harry Potter, in the sense that a movie wouldn't have been made without Nintendo's approval if the deal was made at this time. And they
hmm
wanted to produce all adaptations of the book series. Nintendo NOA worked on a pitch for a third-person action-adventure game, or a third-person adventure title, excuse me, and then a smaller team was broken off at Nintendo Software Technology, NST, to make a Quidditch game, that seems like something any video game company would be to try to make the main action-adventure tentpole title and then do the Quidditch game on the side in the anticipation that people would really get into that.
Yeah. Well, I mean
Rowling
that.
instead, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that is what happened. I mean, I'm almost positive there's a dedicated like pure Quidditch game for PS2 and then probably GameCube.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm like 99% positive with. And then of course there were all the Harry Potter, action adventure games that came out too, like based loosely, very loosely around the events of the movies. But for sure there was a Quidditch game, so that makes sense. I think that could have
Yeah,
worked.
yeah, it seems like anyone would have done that. Especially Warner Bros., who ended up buying those rights and then went on to produce the film series and then contracted out the development of the video game adaptations to EA. Or Electronic Arts it would be the better thing to say, because EA saying that now produces like a mental image, and then saying Electronic Arts is more suggestive of the company 10 years ago
At the
when they were
time,
actually
sure.
making Harry Potter. Yeah. The company's limited resources and lack of experience in TV and film was a contributing factor, as well as the fact that J.K. Rowling wasn't really a fan of the art style. And you know what? After all of this, they probably did the smart thing, selling it to a movie studio at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
Because before that point, think of all the crazy film and viewable adaptations of Nintendo series Nintendo had made. Their one real live-action film was the Mario movie. There were several bad Mario cartoons, several bad Zelda cartoons. There was Captain N, which is probably only good now by a nostalgic standard, and
It's
probably
no,
would not go
it's
over well today.
it's not even good by a nostalgic standpoint.
So
Zach and I did a riff of a Captain Net episode a couple months ago. You can find that on our YouTube channel if you want to watch it. It is very, very bad.
okay. So I think that especially after the Harry Potter movies were made, and how influential that movie has been, or that series has been over the last 15 years. Like, even as a Nintendo fan, it's hard to say that they would have been doing the smart thing giving this to Nintendo instead. A movie probably would have never been made, let alone a good movie.
Yeah, well, Nintendo definitely wouldn't have really had much of a hand in the movie. But they would have been in charge of finding who was going to make the movie. And yeah, that doesn't inspire much confidence. Yeah, like you said, when you look at their their past output. So yeah, I think going with the movie studio was the right choice. I mean, like you said, that they specifically cite like lack of experience in producing film and television for being a reason why they went with Warner Brothers over Nintendo. And if that means that we got less good video games but much better movies, like that's probably better in the long run. I mean, those
So
movies became like phenomenon. So I mean, that was worth it. Have you ever played any of the Harry Potter games, or are you even a fan of Harry Potter in
I
general?
remember the video game based on the first Harry Potter movie. I played that for PC, and
Oh
I
wow.
remember it being okay. But in 2000, I would have been 6 years old, if not seven, if it came out in 2001. So, and when we were all 7 years old, our standards for video games weren't necessarily the highest.
Right.
So I remember that there was a cool like mirror boss fight with Voldemort at the end. Um, Otherwise, I don't really remember that much. But I want to pose the question: what do you think a Harry Potter Nintendo game would have been like? I would have thought that in 1998, it probably would have taken inspiration from Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. Like, we think of a Harry Potter game now, it's complicated. You got to do these specific wand movements in every single Harry Potter game. There's these weird action elements, and then the games never go over that well. But 1998, when all you're left with is the book source, the source material itself, Nintendo probably could have made a really weird, interesting, great Nintendo game.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have a hard time kind of imagining what that would be like. Like you said, Mario 64 is probably good inspiration for it. And naturally you have like Princess Peach's castle, which could compare to Hogwarts.
Hogwarts, yeah.
But I just don't know. Harry Potter, he's obviously not as like mobile as like something like Mario. He's not going to be jumping and running around really as much. I don't know how that would have translated back in the like mid to late N64 days. It's hard to imagine that being able to be pulled off. I think we didn't end up getting the first Harry Potter games on consoles till probably PS2 and GameCube were out, right? Like there weren't any for
Yes, it would have
N64.
been the GameCube era because the Harry Potter
Okay.
movie itself came out in 2001, 2002, and it seems like every game was made in response to that movie. Now, I could be wrong. There could have been an exception. Like, I guess the Quidditch game that came out later, slightly an exception, maybe. But
hmm
I don't remember that many video games based on the actual book franchise. Like,
No, yeah,
directly.
right. No, it was all the movies. It was all being. I mean, and Harry Potter looked like he looked in the movies. I mean, he looked like Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, it was very much
Yep.
inspired by the movie franchise moving forward. I will say that there was a good Nintendo Harry Potter game, at least, yeah, like fairly good. Not produced by Nintendo, obviously, but
Scott. Hello, Scott.
360 and the PS3 versions.
You
But it
gotta
had the
talk. You gotta go back and say the last few sentences again. It completely froze on me.
okay,
And I'm sorry if
okay.
it froze on any of the people watching right now, but it froze on me.
Can you hear me okay now?
Absolutely. Keep going.
Okay. So yeah, Order of the Phoenix for the Wii was pretty good. It was much uglier than the 360 and the PS3 versions, but it did use the Wii remote pretty well in like casting spells, which was kind of fun. Like felt like you were actually moving the wand and moving it in different directions, did different spells and everything like that. So that was kind of good. And exploring Hogwarts was fun. It was the first time I think it was very much like Hogwarts was your hub world, and then you went to different levels to actually like play the game, but you had that like open world Hogwarts to explore, which was really great.
Hmm.
But the best Harry Potter games by far are the Lego Harry Potter games. That goes without saying. Those are good.
Yeah, it's because like the thing is, Lego, or excuse me, Traveler's Tales creates games that are a standard 7 out of 10, at least on consoles. I mean, the early Lego Star Wars game, but it's like it sounds a little silly, but if you
Mm,
think about it, a consistent 7 out of 10, like what publisher wouldn't go for that at least once? Who is used to a history of games not being so good?
mm,
Star Wars, Marvel. DC, well, Batman was the exception, but they actually played off Batman's success once Lego was established as good games. Like all
mm.
these things, of course, Lego would create the first good Indiana Jones game. Well, there were the adventure games, I think, but it's
Yeah.
the first like good like action adventure Indiana Jones game of the modern era, at least.
Mm.
Uh, this makes sense. It makes sense that the Harry Potter games are the good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on to the next game. Let's talk about Know Your Friends. That was the Ubisoft game that was rumored to exist that Ubisoft made, finished, and then never put out due to the Wii U's low software sales on their end and hardware sales. They just retained it and kept it. And that's still the case because Know Your Friends is not a game that is out yet. It was a quirky party and quiz game that featured local and online multiplayer. It was focused on using the gamepad in interesting ways, mostly playing on social interactions. Like, as the title suggests, know your friends. So it was suggested that it would be questions that literally... It's what's that relationship game that was, like, on TV, where, like, the partners would see how well they knew each other? It seemed like it was the video game version of that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Newlywed Game.
The Newlywed Game. There you go. So it seems like this was kind of a version of that. Like, it had one player... like, one question was, it had each player arranging one another on the gamepad based on who was most likely to invite the others for dinner. And I guess the fun in that game would have been conferring whether it was correct or not.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been like, how much do you like your friends and stuff. I don't know. It had like this weird papercraft art style. It wrapped development in 2014, and there are no current plans for it to come out as far as we know. Now, I would like to say that a lot of people probably have this framed in their heads that Ubisoft held this out of spite, that they were pissed by how stuff did on the Wii U. Probably rightfully so, they would have been pissed. And then they decided, like, we won't give them this game because it's so good. I think the real situation is, even if they release it on eShop and don't spend the money putting it on discs, which would have made release easier and more possible to justify because the costs would have been lower to produce. You know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. The reason why they wouldn't is because they probably want to see how far the Wii U can go sales-wise before making that final decision to put it on the console. Like, it seems like if I was Ubisoft and I was holding on to this game, I would probably try to take a guess at where the Wii U's peak is, and then release it then. Like, right now, we've already seen Mario 3D World. We've already seen Smash Bros. We've already seen a lot of an upward trend with the Wii U. Not a fantastic upward trend. I mean, it's still not doing great, as we're going to talk about when we get to the NPDs, but it's still going upwards. I wouldn't be surprised if Ubisoft made the decision to put out this game in around November when The Legend of Zelda comes out, because the Wii U is probably never going to do better and have a higher, like, install base. They're going to reach their max potential for growth with the exception of the stuff that comes out around Animal Crossing around that November. I think if this game comes out, it's going to be in November because they're waiting for the sales potential of the Wii U to peak, and it's going to be then.
Yeah, and I guess I could see that, like, if you have a lot of people picking up the system then to get Zelda, if they're looking at maybe getting other games, maybe that kind of attracts them, especially the idea of it being a, like a party game, something they can play with their families or friends that isn't Zelda, which is going to be purely single player as far as we know. Yeah, I don't know. This game looks, it looks okay. To me, this strikes me as something that would have worked incredibly well on the Wii, and with what the Wii was doing and how popular the Wii was. Like, this would have fit right alongside Wii Sports and shit like carnival games and things like that. Like, it would have been right at home with that and probably would have been a huge success. But on the Wii U, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I think Wii Party U actually did some kind of stuff like this. There were like little quiz games you could play with your friends using your Miis, and it would you'd vote on who was most likely to do something, or kind of, I think it was almost like a slider. Like, it was two choices. Basically, everyone had to vote like how likely someone was to do something, and then in the end it was revealed and it showed who was the closest to what the person actually said, how likely they were to do something. So it's been kind of done before, but I mean, it's kind of a shame it didn't come out. And I think you're right. You don't make a whole game and then have it sitting there and not release it. So it'll come eventually. Well, but I don't know if it'll ever do well when it does come out, but it'll come out.
I'm not gonna say it's not possible for this game to be finished and never come out. I mean, look at Nintendo with Star Fox 2.
Well, sure. I mean, that happens.
And that game was pretty much done. You can play the complete Star Fox 2 experience experience pretty much.
Right. I shouldn't say
And
never because that
maybe
does happen, but
it's so I'm like the reason why that didn't come out, as far as I know, is that the N64 was coming out and Nintendo didn't want to sell the N64 to people anymore. They wanted to focus on the GameCube, or excuse me, they didn't want to
nope.
sell it on the Super Nintendo anymore.
Right,
They
there
wanted to
you go.
sell it on the N64.
Yeah, yeah.
So in this case, I think the situation might be this game didn't turn out well. Even though it's finished, it didn't turn out very good, and
Mm,
there's no possible response Ubisoft could get from this other than negative. And based on what it would sell, and based on they probably didn't spend that much money on it outside a development team, obviously. But it wouldn't have cost as much as Watch Dogs took to make for the other platforms. It probably wasn't that huge of a budget game for them. So maybe for their
yeah.
own reputation, if it didn't turn out well, they might just choose to hold on to it for that reason. So
Yeah,
that
that's
seems like
true.
a possibility too.
Yeah.
And then there's the Metroid game. That it was by an unknown studio, but allegedly a very popular Western developer. We'll talk about that in a minute. The game was said to offer. This also came out on C64. It was said to offer a faster experience than Super Metroid and Metroid. Or excuse me, Metroid Fusion. The gameplay reportedly took advantage of the 3D depth of Nintendo's latest handheld, and it was going to be like a 2.5D game. Uh, in the in the same way, New Super Mario Bros. Was to Super Mario, and Link Between Worlds was to Link to the Past, it seems like this would have been that Metroid game too.
Hmm.
It's or at least that's what the art style looks like. Like this is the new Metroid game for the modern, slightly younger audience, or at least family-friendly audience. The visual style was definitely changed, and was a departure from the series with Samus looking like thinner and more athletic, and like what was the art that leaked looks weird. Like it has a lot of points on Samus,
Hmm.
and it seems like that would have been their new Metroid art style. That new Yoshi's Island, how that diverted, how Zelda diverted, how Mario diverted. So Metroid would have had that too. And they were working on this between Punch-Out and Luigi's Mansion. It seems like Luigi's Mansion ended up getting made instead. Like maybe that idea came together better. And it was probably Next Level Games because this concept art came from a Next Level Games employees artist portfolio, and then and then there was like a LinkedIn or something that also teased this. So it was
Right.
probably Next Level Games. We also know that Next Level Games is working on a video game right now that started development in late 2012. Do you think it's Metroid?
God, I hope so. Yeah, hearing this news was kind of disheartening because I felt like the next piece of the puzzle for the 3DS was to get a Metroid game. It's just been
Mm-hmm.
too long, and it's the perfect platform for it. Um, so reading this, I was like, wow, so this was canceled. So like, when are we getting that next Metroid game? So maybe they just scrapped it and they started fresh. I mean, like you said, maybe they didn't like the art style, maybe they didn't like the direction it was going. So maybe now they're making something a little bit more classic, which would be fine with me. But God, I hope it's coming. I'm very much worried that it isn't, though. I'm preparing myself that we're going to be quite some time still before we get another true Metroid game, which is unfortunate because those games are so much fun.
What this said to me wasn't, I wonder if they're making a new Metroid game instead. It's, oh, we're not getting any Metroid game instead. Because if
Right,
Next Level
exactly.
Games wasn't gonna make it, like they're not gonna give it to Way Forward because that would have been a dumb move, and then also, Nintendo would never do that. And Retro's not gonna make it. They're not gonna focus on the 3DS. I mean, they made that those Mario Kart levels, which are fine.
Right.
But like for the development of Donkey Kong, they passed that along to Monster Games, and even the development of the new levels, it seemed like they passed on to Monster Games.
Hmm.
So it's not going to be them, unless it's some like Nintendo studio in Japan, and it probably isn't because Retro was the one who made Metroid Prime. I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't think we're getting a Metroid game, and that's kind of a bummer. But that's it's that's all I can really say about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this series just isn't as popular as we like to pretend it is. I mean, they must know internally that it doesn't need to be a priority. It's very much in the second tier, like Star Fox. Of course, and probably gotten more Star Fox games in the past 5 to 8 years than we have Metroid games at this point, right?
Hmm.
Probably, which is disappointing. But yeah, I just don't think it's a priority anymore. And kind of, I don't know if we talked about it on here, if we talked about connectivity, I get everything mixed up now. But now that like Metroid Prime, the trilogy is on Wii U, and like kind of replaying that again and just remembering how great that is, I kind of almost would prefer just Metroid Prime 4. Like retro, get me an HD Metroid Prime like stat. That's what I want now. I think that could be so great. So I can live without Metroid on 3DS if it's going to Wii U. I can't live without the series on either platform. That I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, I used to look at Metroid as like one of the main Nintendo franchises. Like, if 10 years ago, if you asked me what the main three Nintendo franchises were, and didn't count Pokemon because that's kind of its own weird thing,
Yeah.
it would have been Mario, Link, Samus. Those would have been the three. And
Yeah.
nowadays, if you think about it, Samus is in the same tier as Star Fox and maybe even F-Zero. I mean, F
Yeah.
Zero is probably its own weird, but it's like a weird tertiary franchise now that it almost feels like Nintendo makes because the fans want it so bad and they just don't want to hear them complain about it anymore. It doesn't feel like they're doing that
Right.
for like they're prepared to not make a ton of money when they make the next Metroid. It feels like,
Right.
and I mean there was other M. But if they're not going to be working on two Metroid games at one time, one for each platform, if they're working on a Metroid game at all, it's going to be on Wii U. Because Nintendo cares about Wii U the most. They care about making success of that. And it seems like, if anything, Nintendo is probably winding down a little bit on 3DS, or at least at the beginning of that. So I don't think we're getting a 3DS Metroid game.
And I worry about
Just doesn't make sense.
I worry about a Metroid game on Wii U because I kind of look at something like Bayonetta 2 as maybe Nintendo sort of testing the waters, and because to me Bayonetta 2 is a very hardcore series and it would draw the same kind of fans that a new Metroid Prime title would on Wii U, and Bayonetta 2 did not do very good. Now naturally I think hardcore Nintendo fans would be more likely to buy a Metroid game than Bayonetta 2, but I don't know that it's that many more people that it makes a substantial difference. So if Bayonetta 2 didn't do well on Wii U, I don't really see how a new Metroid game necessarily does any better. So it does kind of worry me a little bit.
Sure, but if we're getting a new Star Fox game, we'll get a new Metroid game at some point. I don't think we're never going to see Metroid again. I just don't think we're getting it on this handheld platform.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Moving on to new releases, I'm going to be talking about all three of the new 3DS ones because some other games came out. Like I think Black came out this week, and there's either going to be a review soon or there already is one. That game looked pretty good, but let's talk about the new 3DS games. Zelda Majora's Mask 3D comes out tomorrow. When is your copy shipping, Scott?
Well, I didn't order it. I'm waiting because I ordered my new 3DS from Best Buy, but I didn't like pay extra to get a day and date or anything. I'm letting them ship it tomorrow, and so because Monday I didn't realize at the time when I ordered it a month ago was President's Day, it probably won't end up coming to like Tuesday or Wednesday, but that's okay because I want to beat Dragon Age. I've set myself I'm beating Dragon Age before the new 3DS comes because once the new 3DS comes, I'm not going to do anything else but play the new 3DS. So basically, when it comes and my wife texts me while I'm at work and says, "Hey, your new 3DS came," then on my way home from work, I'm just going to go pick it up and do it that way. I didn't need to order the game itself, but so I should be playing that like middle of next week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Uh, so your new 3DS that has not shipped from Best Buy yet because I actually bought a new 3DS Zelda from Best Buy, and as far as I know, unless it's shipped while we were recording the show, it has not shipped yet. But my
No,
Best
no,
Buy Majora's Mask Skull Kid, huh?
yeah, see, I'm the same. I ordered the Majora's Mask 3DS from Best Buy, and no, when I checked it today, it said shipping tomorrow. So luckily, it didn't get canceled. Did
Okay.
you hear? Best Buy was actually canceling some of the pre-orders. People got sent notifications that they like oversold them, but mine didn't get canceled. So
Yeah, mine didn't either. My Skull Kid Majora's Mask limited edition that thing
mm,
shipped from Best Buy today, and then
nice.
the new 3DS I'm actually getting from GameStop. The Best Buy one I got for my brother because like just it was only up for like an hour, so I had to get it myself, and it was a weird thing. You know how that stuff is. And then mine
Sure,
from
sure.
my new 3DS from GameStop that also shipped today. So Hopefully everything's coming mid next week. I am looking forward
Nice.
to Majora's Mask 3D because, in the same way I've never beaten Ocarina of Time 3D, I haven't even seen that much gameplay of Majora's Mask in general.
No,
Like when I saw
no.
that new trailer, that came out. Like a lot of the stuff that was there was new to me. I don't know how the masks work. I just know there's a lot of them. I know there's
Mhm.
4 dungeons. I think it's 4. They're weird. The game is in some ways longer and shorter than other Zelda games. It's.
Uh-huh.
I'm so looking forward to seeing playing the new 3DS version because it sounds like any of the stuff that would have been scary to get into before probably won't be as scary on this version.
Right, and not only that, but it's just so much easier to like figure out what you need to do next. Like back, I think I told the story on connectivity this week's episode or next week's episode, but I was like 14 or maybe 13 when Majora's Mask came out, and coming off Ocarina of Time, like it's a lot more difficult to get into initially because you almost are like immediately faced with the idea of having this time constraint that after 3 days, the moon crashes into the world and everyone dies. So I had a really hard time like figuring out just what to do and how to stop that from happening. But it sounds like yeah, it's a much smoother transition now. And even if you were having trouble, now it's so much easier to just go on GameFAQs and go like, oh, okay, I need to go here. Or I need to do this before this certain amount of time passes. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as difficult as it was back in 19 or 2000, I guess. I think is when Majora's Mask came out. So
Right, and what I liked about Ocarina of Time 3D is that like it made stuff easier to get into, and I think if they might have made the water temple easier in general.
mm.
But Ocarina of Time was still a slightly challenging game, especially if you didn't want to use walkthroughs at
Oh yeah,
all.
yeah.
Like it seemed I don't know that well because I'd only played like half of Ocarina of Time before that, but it seems like it's at least its spirit, its challenge wasn't necessarily lost. So I hope that's the case with this.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Uh, yeah. The next game that came out is Ace Combat Assault Horizon, or is coming out tomorrow, or Assault Horizon Plus, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And that seems like it's an enhanced version of the game that came out around the 3DS's launch. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's more content. I don't know if it looks better. I think Zach Kaplan has that code, or will have that code, and then he'll be
Yeah,
reviewing that.
he's
So we'll
reviewing
see.
it.
Well, we'll see how that turns out. And then the third game came out, the one I have actually played, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. That comes out tomorrow. That game is really, really good, especially if you have never played a Monster Hunter game but really want to, but have always been a little scared of getting into it. It's extremely accessible to get into. It's the first 10 hours, it straight up holds your hand and makes sure you know exactly what you're doing. But it's not that boring either because like it starts with this God of War-esque great battle against a monster on a ship, and then you get into your boss battle really quickly, your first boss battle, and then it teaches you the ropes, and there's tutorials for every weapon, I think. It's if you've ever wanted to get the Monster Hunter, you will not get a better game to do so than Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. And in addition to that, it has a lot of stuff that really enhances the series. Like you can now climb on top of monsters and topple them by stabbing their back. This was the first time you could ever mount monsters that you can't actually directly control them. And then also, it's a much more vertical game. You can climb a lot of stuff. You can jump on monsters' backs. You can do slashes in the air. And then there's multiplayer in this one, which the 3DS game didn't exactly have. The Wii U one did, and that's really fun too. That works really well. So if you guys want a Monster Hunter game and you want to play a game for a really long period of time, this is it. I would recommend it specifically to people who like Earth Defense Force. I am a huge fan of Earth Defense Force, specifically 2017, and 2025 was okay, but whatever. It's if you like Earth Defense Force and you love that feeling of like getting stronger weapons and killing more stuff and killing bigger stuff, that's what this game is, but even better made. I mean, I've dropped almost 50 hours into it, and I think I've been playing it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, super good. Read my review. Read the editorial Neil's either putting up soon or will put up. Read our other content that's going to go up for it. And I am hoping that we will have a proper, at-length connectivity segment at some point in the next week or two.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we will see if that comes together. Moving on to news. Closing the show out, we have 2 stories. Tonight, the NPDs came out, and they're Smash Wii U and Smash 3DS each sold around 90,000 copies this month each, and Smash Wii U has 1.4 million life to date, digital plus retail, and Smash 3DS is 2.1. Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, 150K this month, 2.7 million life to date, digital plus retail. Wii U software is up nearly 45% year over year, which is nice. This one's not Nintendo related, but Dying Light won, which is interesting. Smash Bros. Is 6th place, and I think that actually combines the 3DS and Wii U sales into one.
It does,
yeah. So yeah, I think it's listed as like Smash Bros. 4, Wii U, and 3DS.
Slash 3DS,
and
yeah.
Yeah. And then Wii U is up nearly 30% year over year, which puts its current sales at about 63.7K. And then there was no 3DS sales data whatsoever. It only teased the forthcoming release of the new 3DS, which says to me that the original 3DS is not doing so hot right now.
Yep. This is like where Neil should be here to go on like a really long rant about how like he's right and everyone who was talking shit on Twitter sucks and proof is in the pudding, bitches. But he's not here, so I'll say all that for him. He would basically say it just like that. That's pretty much a quote.
Yeah, no. He'd absolutely say it. He would absolutely say it right then. But yeah, no 3DS sales. That's Of course, there are no 3DS sales. I just hope that like someone who like sneaks a message to someone who does have the full data, and they're like, oh, what are the sales of the 3DS actually? Usually that'll come out when people are really interested in it. I hope that comes out soon. I wouldn't be surprised if those sales were super depressing, if not the worst month ever for the original 3DS.
Well, it's had to be bad for a while now. I mean, it seems kind of like a mistake to like before Christmas announce, oh, we've got new hardware coming out in like 2 months after Christmas. I mean, that was kind of like I don't see why it couldn't have come out maybe ahead of Christmas. That could have been good. You know, I could be wrong, but when you announce new hardware coming like 3 months down the line, people don't really jump on buying that existing hardware then, like for Christmas. They think, I'll just wait. And then you lose a lot of sales, so...
Yeah, it's whenever I go into a GameStop now and I see the original 3DS XL, I just get a little sad inside. Just like the original 3DS, like it's just so useless now. Just because the way better 3DS is coming out. I don't know if you get that same feeling a little bit. No, not useless like in general, but just useless compared to what's about to come out.
Oh no, I get it. I mean, me personally, I've wanted to play the Codename Steam demo. I've wanted to play all the Theater Rhythm DLC that's come out for Chrono Trigger, but I'm purposely waiting for the new 3DS because I hate that thing. Like, knowing that the new 3DS is coming out, I want no part of my existing 3DS now. Like, I haven't touched it. I don't even know if it's completely charged. I mean, I need to charge it so I can do the god-awful transfer process soon. But yeah, I have, like, forsaken that thing. That thing is like a blight upon my house. Like, I don't look at that thing. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Remember when the original 3DS came out, and then there was that holy shit moment when you look at the 3DS, and then you see that Nintendo 3DS logo slowly pop out at you on the screen for the first time, and it's crazy. And now its enhanced, superior version is looked at as this old trash. Like it's been a long time since the original 3DS came out. Like I was originally against the idea of doing a 3DS retrospective, but it feels like it's in its second half comfortably now.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. Yeah, like this is definitely the second life of the 3DS. Which, speaking of, if anyone would like to listen to our retrospective on the launch, the very bad launch of the Nintendo 3DS, go listen to last week's episode of Connectivity. It was a lot of fun.
You know what? As bad as the 3DS launch was, it still led to one of my favorite days ever as a Nintendo fan, which was the day when they announced that the ambassadors would be getting 10 free games, and that the price cut would be ridiculous. And that 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 got titles out of nowhere, and they were both ridiculous. And that was a real fun day. And I remember listening to the... Was that a newscast episode at that point, or was that
oh, man. That's a good
It
question.
would have been right on the tail end of newscast, if at all.
Yeah, it would have still been a newscast. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think connectivity launched like in like November-ish of that year, which I think this was announced. I mean, this was announced before then.
This
This
was
was announced
June,
probably
probably July,
yeah.
August actually. It would have
I think
been very
July,
end of
July or
July.
June, July or June. Yeah.
It would have. So okay, I remember getting my dog late July, and then I was in the tired early dog mode of dealing with him, and then I remember that news really cheering me up. So it was somewhere between July 27th and like August 10th to 15th.
Okay.
It was in that area. All right. New 3DS, I'm so excited for you. I know I sounded like a grumpy grouch in the last few minutes, but I'm so excited for the new 3DS. I can't wait to see how crazy that circle pad replacement is. I can't wait to feel those RZ, LZ2 buttons. I can't wait to look at the 3D from a slight angle to the left. I'm so excited for it. Let's talk about our other story this week.
All right. Yeah, let's talk for something that's much less exciting.
Ending the show on a super positive note, and I'm not even being ironic about that. Sonic Boom is the worst performing Sonic game in history. They're the worst performing Sonic launch, and that probably includes the weird Sonic games too.
Sonic Spinball.
Sonic Spinball. The combined sales of Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, and Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal failed to reach 500,000 sales worldwide. I originally thought that would have been Rise of Lyric or Shattered Crystal,
Right,
but both of them combined, when you combine the sales of every country in the world, fails to reach the average Nintendo-produced Wii U game now.
And that's really surprising because
490,000 copies. Yeah,
because we knew those games were bad, and it was reported almost immediately that the Wii U game especially had terrible like technical glitches and problems, and they were reviewed badly. Sega didn't even send out copies of the games until the launch day, which is a bad sign. But even with all that, like Sonic is still really popular. They wouldn't make these things if he wasn't. There are a lot of hardcore, gross Sonic fans. So even still, all that considered, that they still did this bad is really shocking to me, and really kind of gives you an idea of the quality of these games.
But also impressive.
It's impressive, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's a little impressive that as hard as they sold this game, it still did just that bad.
You know, that's true, because these games really did have a marketing push, and you have a tied-in like cartoon series on Cartoon Network. So there really was a big push behind this series to kind of relaunch and rebrand Sonic and have it really spin off across multiple like platforms and different means of entertainment. But it has not worked. I have not played the Wii U version of the game, but I did review the 3DS game for IGN. I gave it a 4.0, which equates to bad, and it was bad. It was not a good game. A lot of terrible exploration. I think in total there's only 7 levels, but you're forced to replay them like probably 3 or 4 times to find a bunch of like. I mean, in a way, it felt like Donkey Kong 64. Like you have to find a bunch of hidden little items to unlock the next levels. Terrible, terrible writing. Bad gameplay. I mean, it was all across the board. It was not a good game. It was a very bad game. So this doesn't surprise me.
It's just, you gotta wonder if Sega's self-aware sometimes. Just because it's okay to give a marketing push to this game because it's Sonic. It's gonna get a marketing push regardless. But the fact that the developers almost seem proud of it, the fact that the developers were down for interviews immediately, the fact that this had a huge marketing push and demos that you could download before release.
Yeah.
The fact that this was playable multiple times before release, and it was still this bad. You gotta wonder if this entire marketing push was in the hopes that people would buy it immediately before reviews came out, or if they actually believed in this game. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, Sega's definitely feeling the bite from their bad decisions, because it was recently announced that they're downsizing to restructure and focus its effort on PC and digital titles, because that's the only place they're really making money right now, probably outside of Atlas, or they will be making money from Atlas. When's the next Sonic game going to come out? Like, there's not going to be one next year, is there? Like, will there even be one for the next few years, or are they still going to figure it out? Because the Sonic Boom thing completely failed. I'm pretty sure the show it was more or less not doing so well either. Like, Does
Well, that's
Sonic have much of a future, or is Sonic literally Sega's Mega Man now?
no, Sonic has a future. Like I said, there are way too many fans, weird fans of Sonic for it to not have a future. It'll come back in some way. I do wonder, do we know how the cartoon show is doing?
Keep talking.
I
I
see
am going to
people
figure that out right now.
I see people like tweet screencaps from it with quotes, and it sounds atrocious, but that doesn't mean like kids aren't enjoying it.
TV
So if the
show
cartoon,
canceled.
if the cartoon, wait, what? It's canceled?
No, no,
Is
no.
that what
I
you
was
said?
just googling. I was googling canceled,
Okay.
just in the
I was like,
assumption that it was.
okay, okay. Holy shit, I got really excited there for a second. But if the cartoon show can actually do well enough for now and kind of draw in kids, and they can take their time and make a, God forbid, a sequel to the Sonic Boom video games that we have now, and really put some time and care into it, it could eventually work out. Like I could see another Sonic Boom game coming out next year if the cartoon does well enough to sustain the franchise until that time. The games obviously didn't,
So here's
but
where we're at.
okay.
They aired 2 episodes November 8th, 2 episodes November 15th, two November 22nd, one November 29th, one December 6th, one January 17th, one January 24th, and then now it seems like there's one weekly through February 28th. So it has not officially been canceled yet, but already season one in, they're already on that weird Fairly Odd Parents SpongeBob schedule where they make 6 episodes every 2.5 years. I don't have a good feeling about this show right now. It's actually, in that sense, I do have a great feeling about the show right now because it's gonna get canceled real soon.
Well, no, that's that's fairly normal, right? So they went from doing 2 episodes every week to down to doing 1 episode every week. I mean, that's not that bad for
I guess
a
they
weekly
took
cartoon
it.
show.
They took their own Walking Dead style break between episode 8 and 9.
Well, yeah, because
Which,
for the holidays, I
yeah.
mean that's not uncommon. Most shows, don't air new episodes right around Christmas and New Year's. They take that like winter break, so that's not unsurprising. That seems right. But I'd be
Well,
interested in knowing
yeah.
more about like ratings and stuff. But that's neither here nor there. We don't need to try to look that up now. But again, if the show does
Yeah.
well enough, I could honestly see them trying to make another Sonic Boom game. I really do think it could happen.
Sonic Boom 2.
Yeah, Boom
Mm.
shakalaka.
All
It could
right, that's
happen.
our show for this week, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Alex Calafia. I can be found at Calafia, Culafia. Scott can be found at OK Soda. OK, the word soda. If you like stuff about the show, if you don't like stuff about the show, tell us in the comments. We want to know what you think, and we want to make the show to meet your standards. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'm so happy that 10 people are watching this by the end, and I'm so happy that more people are going to watch this in the future. I love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.